now that the rack is installed, it's time to modify the steering shaft and put it in. Here's the steering shaft. The rag joint is in surprisingly decent condition, it looks like anyway. But this is the adapter. The spline side is different on a manual rack. I think this is a 9/16 29 spline. And the adapter that I have, I believe, is for a D shaft. I have a choice. I can either mill down the shaft with 2 flats, or I can bore this out and just leave it round. Most likely I'll mill down the shaft because I like the positive engagement idea of a D shaft. So I believe we have to get this to approximately the same length as it was before, which would actually mean cutting the shaft. And the only way we can cut the shaft is by removing these 2 very grungy bolts. So we can remove this yoke, cut close, and then mill flat, test fit, and see what happens. So let's take out these bolts. If you don't have an impact gun, get one. For years I didn't have a compressor big enough. I used an electric one. The electric one works really well too. I actually don't think you can get this out with the bolts in place, but it's irrelevant because we're going to go to the bandsaw and we're going to cut that off. Okay, I've sandblasted the shaft using the aluminum oxide abrasive. I taped this off with gaffer's tape so I wouldn't get abrasive in there, and then I hit this with a brake cleaner and then a wire wheel. You can still obviously see the difference, but I'm amazed this thing is still tight. There's 0 play in it. What we're going to do is we're going to face this off just to have a nice edge to work with. Okay, so if everything is in line with this flat here, then I mill right at the top here. So how am I going to do that? The easiest way, get a 1, 2, 3 block. Doesn't even really need to be flat. Just put it here. Make sure it's all nice and flat. And boom. Yeah, this kind of stuff was a complete, I won't say mystery, but it just wasn't in my mental lexicon to look at things this way until I started watching the other machinist videos and seeing how they did stuff. It's pretty fascinating to me. Once again, we'll use the trick with the 1, 2, 3 block here. I'm actually kind of tempted to put another one here. It's a little too far out. So that way the 2 flats are 180 degrees opposite of each other. Let's go ahead and indicate it real quick. I predict this one is nowhere close. It's already down 5 thou. I think that deserves a little tap. It's better. Part of it is this was swedged into that plate, and I think it's a little wider there. So it's good to go a little further out, but it is dropping. Okay, we're at 0. It's going to drop. It's down about 4 thou and holding. Now it's going back up to 0. I'm going to call that good enough. Remember, that's a 30-year-old rod or shaft. It's been out in the elements. And it's been swedged and everything else, so, you know, or swaged, right? Swaged? Oh no. I just don't know. That's the swedge section. I'm going to call that my 0 mark. Which is really pushing it for this tiny mill. But I don't want to go back and forth 85 times. Lock it in. Oh, I do not like that. Alright guys, so I went to Dallas for work, came back, and last night I snuck out here and finished up the shaft. All it took was a little bit of fitting. We shortened this by, maybe 100 thou, maybe a little bit less. Drilled some small 1/4 inch holes for the set screws to go in. We mocked everything up and fitted it. And I don't know if you can even make this out, but the shaft slightly narrows here because it was just barely touching the header when installed. So we chucked this up in 3/4 inch collet in the mini mill, and basically just cut this down just ever so slightly. I had to tape this together so this thing wouldn't flop around and throw the thing off balance, because the mini mill is most definitely not a Bridgeport. And even that offset mass really made a big difference. Everything fits nicely now. The biggest problem we had in here was the paint that they used on this. That was really causing it to hang up. It took a rubber mallet to tap it on to test. And then when we pulled it out, we saw where it was interfering. Now the fit is perfect. There's very little slop in it, almost basically nothing perceptible, but it fits in perfectly, which is perfect because when we install it, we need to be able to adjust it. So well, let's put it in. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to install the shaft, which of course only goes in one way. And what you'll notice is that I did lightly coat the ends with anti-seize, the idea being that as this ages, it doesn't rust in those joints and become difficult to take out like it was before. So next step, I'll put Loctite. I'll put Loctite on the set screws. I know it's out of focus everywhere. Loctite on the set screws, and of which there are 3. And yeah, and then we'll tighten that down. So this is, the top part is slipped all the way in, this part is slipped all the way in. It should give us enough play to get in the flat on this side. Okay, everything's in, it's tightened up. Next up, we figure out a way to mount the alternator.